Says, hey, Brandon, why do we draft for talent and not for need? Well, it's more you draft for value, but I mean, you're right about value being the more talented player. The reason that you do this is because the NFL is very hard to beat out other teams. The parity of the sport, any given Sunday, how close all of these teams are together versus other sports space where there is much more of a very, very keen delineation between the good, the bad, the in-between. NFL, there's a lot of teams that are just right in that same spot. And so when you approach anything, free agency or the draft or player development, when you go at any one thing and you're not smart in your approach, you will pay the price for doing so. And on the surface of it, there may be a smart approach to the outlook of saying, we have these holes on the team, so let's address these holes on the team, and then our team will be in better shape for it. But what that ends up taking you away from is taking the most talented guy. And if you do that over a long enough period of time, I'm not taking the most talented guy, I'm taking the need. I'm taking the need, not the most talented, but I'm taking the need. Well, now you end up a couple years down the line and you have an under-talented team that may have all of its holes filled, but it's not particularly talented. So then how do you get to the other end of that? How do you get to the most talented team? How do you get to the place where you can maximize all of the possible talent that we can bring into the house? Well, going into your drafts and taking the best player on the board, taking the best possible player that you can go and grab. And so it's one that is not just something that, this plays out in theory space, but this is something to where you can see organizations who years have let that process be their driving mode and organizations who for years have let need be more of the driving mode. And you can see that this is not one where there's a lot of variance in the success and failures. The team that drafts for value, the team that stays in that pocket is the team that ultimately is the most successful. The Eagles got a Super Bowl last year because when they're there picking at 10 in the first round, and they could go address different other needs that they may have in that moment, maybe an outside corner, for instance. Well, let's take Gonzalez as our outside corner there. No, we've got a higher grade on Jalen Carter. Gonzalez, great player, fits to the need that we have, but we really like Jalen Carter. This is a Hall of Fame talent. We got Fletcher Cox on the roster, though. We got the Milton Williams guy that just signed the incredible contract with the Patriots pace, the defensive tackle that had a really good Super Bowl. You got him on the roster. You got Jordan Davis that you just took in the first round 2 years ago. Don't care. Draft for value. It pays off for them. The Baltimore Ravens have spent a decade being a contending team right there with everybody else. And it isn't just because you hit on Lamar Jackson. It's because their process is wholly driven by a value-based model. And it allows them to always keep their roster stocked up to the ultimate in that way because they don't deviate. They don't fluctuate. They stay in that pocket. There's just so much proof to this being the right process space and so much proof to the ladder and so much failure to the ladder when you try to go a different direction. Basically, you're kind of rolling the dice either way. And if you hit on a player that you need to save money and have younger talent, there's always a rolling of the dice in the draft all the time there, Space. But that's where we come back to why a team like the Ravens, if it's all a roll of the dice on this space, and the drafting for value is one that has its fluctuations up and down, well, then they don't have that 15 years, 20 years of consistency. And with the Ravens, their draft process, so why I gravitate to them as an example here is because you have 20 years of very similar organizational like-mindedness all the way throughout. It's mainly Ozzie Newsome, but when Ozzie Newsome gave it to DaCosta and moved on and handed it to DaCosta had been working under Ozzie Newsome and operated from the same mindset of his approach in the value-based model of approach. So if there was that fluctuation of teams that operate this way, then you would have seen more of the dips in the Baltimore Ravens program rather than the pure lack of consistency that we are seeing in them being a true, contender type team here over this 15, 20-year period in which they've also won 2 Super Bowls. There really is not as much necessarily luck to this. There is luck to the draft in general, and it doesn't guarantee success operating from a value-based model that you're going to, knock every draft out of the park. But it gets you closer to the direction of success in a draft versus drafting for need, which takes you further away from possible success in a draft. And it's proven out time and time again. And it's been proven out here in Seattle time and time again. Like the LJ Collier pick. That's a pick that's purely for need. The Eskridge pick. That's a pick purely for need. Got Waldron coming in. We need a gadget guy. We need a bubble screen guy. We need a fly sweep guy. Let's grab this guy here. Is he the best player on the board? No, but we need it. Didn't work out. You start overlooking things in the player a little bit too. Start looking past deficiencies in their game. That's also what you're doing in grabbing that need. Because then the need ends up driving it, not the player's talent.